I'm a well-known, aloof actress in the entertainment industry. One day my agent Susie got me a movie offer. Good news, there is a script that I think is very suitable for you. Do you want to try this opportunity? I'm thrilled inside and casually ask. What's the bad news? The male lead is your arch nemesis and you'll have dozens of kissing scenes. Susie's words immediately suppressed the corners of my mouth that had just been raised. Then I shook my head. No way. Just say I went to Hawaii for vacation, no time for this. My agent Susie, aware of the long-standing animosity between me and Carl, still tried to convince me seriously. Caroline, with this movie, you could easily win an International Best Actress award. Your career would be unstoppable, no one would stand in your way. How about reconsidering? I smiled faintly, preparing to leave. You know I couldn't care less about those empty titles. If you don't mind, I'm going to enjoy my vacation now, goodbye. After tax, the paycheck's $5 million. I froze mid-step, my ass back in the chair before I even realized it. Where's the script? I'll read it right now. Don't stop me from diving into the character. When I finally agreed to take the role, it was after a lot of mental preparation. The thing is, the male lead, Carl, is notorious as my arch nemesis in the industry. We've never clicked, not even a little. Technically, I'm his senior, and for many of the male stars, I'm the ethereal, unattainable ideal girlfriend. But once, during an event, a shy male star mentioned I was his ideal type, and Carl, sitting right there, scoffed and said, "You should pick someone else." That one comment had a ripple effect, and soon everyone in the industry thought I had a terrible reputation. The media went wild. At that time, Carl had just won every Best Actor award at the major film festivals for a single movie. He was considered as a star on the rise in the cinema industry. Susie told me not to care about what he said. After all, he was the one with the fame. I did, but that moment marked the beginning of a rivalry with Carl. Now, we're supposed to work together? I'd rather kill him on the spot. But when 100 million is on the line, it's nothing. I'll just think of it like getting bitten a few times by some dog named Carl. It's only a handful of kissing scenes, right? No big deal. Besides, as much as Carl and I clash, it's hard to deny that his face and body are perfect. The youngest ever Grand Slam Best Actor, the epitome of male in the industry. Among male stars, he stands out like no one else. If he gets to kiss me, that's his honor. With that thought, the irritation inside me started to ease a bit. To make sure I don't look bad when the time comes, I decided to look up some kissing scene tutorials online. That's when I noticed Carl's name right next to mine on the homepage of social media. Behind it, there was a huge exposé. Huh? The news of us starring together in the movie hadn't even been leaked yet, right? Could it be the fans are fighting so fiercely that we got dragged into it? I clicked, heart racing. What I found was a recent interview with Carl. In the video, he lounged lazily in his chair, his face a perfect mix of devilish charm and trouble. The host, looking shy, asked who his ideal type was. Carl raised an eyebrow, casually looked into the camera, and said one name. Caroline. Oh, really? I scoffed, rolling my eyes. This bastard never misses a chance to mess with me. As the screen filled with comments like love-hate relationship, enemies to lovers, I hit report. Reason, violation of guidelines. A few days later, the rumors about Carl and me starring in the movie were leaked. Our names shot back to the top of the trending list within minutes. Both our fanbases, who were constantly at each other's throats, were caught completely off guard. Many people dug up the recent incident about our ideal types and went wild debating it. Some even claimed that we'd lowered ourselves for money and thrown our dignity out the window. What's wrong with me not caring about my dignity? If someone offers you 100 million, who wouldn't be tempted? I didn't care about the gossip. After finishing an ad shoot, I hurried off to the script reading session. The moment I walked in and looked up, I found myself staring straight into Carl's cold, indifferent eyes. Ugh, that jerk got here before me. Carl raised an eyebrow when he saw me. He had that look on his face, like he was taunting me. The staff around us immediately tensed up, their fists clenched, probably fearing we'd start throwing punches. They were ready to break up a fight at any moment. I just gave a polite nod to the directors, barely acknowledging the tension. Ridiculous. I'd already received half of my paycheck, so even if Carl were to fart in my face right now, I'd just pretend it smelled amazing. Professional ethics, after all, firm and unwavering. I pushed my sunglasses up and walked over to the empty chair next to Carl. But I overdid it. Not paying attention, I tripped on a small step and stumbled right toward him. Shit. I panicked. As I lost my balance, I saw Carl just sitting there, motionless. I struggled, tried to recover, even considered attempting a 360-degree spin in midair. But in the end, I ended up clumsily landing right on top of him. The room fell into a stunned silence. Then, Carl let out a sharp chuckle. Caroline, so eager? What, are you secretly in love with me? Heh. I quickly wiped the surprised look off my face. I should have just knocked him off his chair with one swift move. As the staff members finally reacted with loud gasps, I stood up, my face bright red. I ignored his stupid remark and quickly mumbled. Thanks, sorry. Carl stretched his long legs and smiled lazily. No problem. No need to rush next time. What a jerk. I forced a smile, quickly turning my attention to the script in my hands. Trying to suppress the urge to smack him in the face. I'd already lost the first round as soon as we met today, how unlucky. Just as I was trying to figure out how to get back at him, I caught a glimpse of Carl glancing at me every now and then. That look was hard to read. Heh, that jerk definitely has something up his sleeve. Though I couldn't stand Carl, I still had professional standards. So, I focused on the work at hand, resisting the temptation to start a fight. Carl, surprisingly, was playing along. Our peaceful interaction seemed to relax everyone in the room. The director finally spoke up, his voice cheerful. Caroline, Carl, we've gone over the script twice, but there's one more important thing I haven't mentioned. A bad feeling stirred in my gut, and my eyelids began to twitch. Don't tell me. Then, the director dropped the bomb. It's about the kissing scenes. I knew it. Even though I'd mentally prepared for these intimate scenes, I still felt a little nervous. After all these years in the industry, my type who keeps a distance from everyone and values privacy. The most intimate scene I've ever done was a simple peck on the cheek. But now they were talking about full-on kisses, it was definitely a shock. After all, who'd have thought I'd never been in love? I pressed my lips together, fiddling nervously with my hands. The director looked at us seriously. Considering the story's logic and integrity, these scenes won't be cut. I need both of you to cooperate on set, and keep any outside drama under control. In other words, we can fight, but don't mess with the filming schedule. My ears were suddenly on fire. Carl leaned back, his voice casual. I'm fine with it. Let's see how Caroline feels. I quickly pasted on a fake smile. I'm totally fine with it. The director's eyes lit up, and he clapped his hands. Great. If everyone's good to go, let's jump straight into the first kissing scene. I nearly slid off my chair. What? Why the rush? Looking at the king-sized bed and the lazy Carl lying beside it, I couldn't help but feel a surge of regret. I shouldn't have let money cloud my judgment and taken this film. I regretted it. I really regretted it. But the contract was signed, and half the money was already in. There was no turning back now. What a mess. The director, oblivious to my inner turmoil, was excitedly giving instructions. All right, for this scene, Caroline, you're the one taking the initiative. First, hug Carl, then shyly plant a kiss. After that, Carl will pull you close and confess his love sweetly. This is pretty damn cheesy. As I turned my head, trying to hide my discomfort, I noticed Carl grinning. His hands casually in his pockets, he raised an eyebrow and looked at me mischievously. Caroline, you good with this? I'm more than good. A woman never says she's not. Suppressing my embarrassment, I steeled myself and threw myself into the hug with Carl. Carl was tall, so in this position, my face ended up buried right in his neck. I felt his Adam's apple move. For some reason, the atmosphere became incredibly charged with tension. My face flushed even deeper, and I quickly tried to pull away, but I realized Carl had frozen up. His muscles were rigid. Wait, could it be that this jerk was also shy? Just as I was about to take a jab at him and turn the tables, the director jumped in, excited. Now, Caroline, give him a kiss. I tried to push down my feelings, quickly lifting my face and pecking him on the lips. Nice, very good. Innocent, but with some tension. Now Carl? What are you waiting for? Hug Caroline. Okay. As soon as those words left his mouth, I felt myself being pulled tightly into Carl's embrace. As I instinctively tried to pull away, I heard his voice, low and gravelly, coming from above me. Caroline, how do you want to do this? Carl's voice, with that deep, almost raspy tone, sent shivers down my spine. Damn, this guy's got a voice that could melt you. It was like it was vibrating straight through my chest. I quickly averted my gaze, trying to regain some composure. Of course, we'll do it the way the director said. The moment I said that, I wanted to bite my tongue off. How did that whiny, breathy tone even come out of me? I looked so ridiculous in front of Carl. But he didn't seem to notice anything odd, just lowering his head toward me after a low hum of acknowledgement. With the distance between us shrinking, I could see the dark lashes framing his deep eyes and the faint color of his lips. There was something almost hypnotic about it, and I found myself momentarily breathless. But just as our lips were about to meet, the director clapped his hands and yelled. All right, that's perfect. We'll shoot it just like this. Let's move on and try the next scene. My heart, which had been tightly clenched, finally relaxed a little. Just as I was about to scramble and push Carl off, he coolly rolled off the bed. And, surprisingly, he extended a polite hand to help me up. Oh, so this jerk can remain unaffected. Not even a blush. His calmness caused a few of the female crew members to look at him with hearts in their eyes. I couldn't help but feel a pang of frustration. Was he undermining my charm? I smirked inwardly. When filming officially started, I was going to make sure I taught him a lesson in how to properly do a kissing scene. As I was mentally preparing for my big moment, the makeup artist, who had been retouching Carl's face, suddenly gasped. Carl, why are your ears and neck so red? Are you running a fever? I instinctively turned to look, but then I heard Carl mutter something in a low voice. No, just, too hot. Hot? I glanced out the window at the snowflakes falling, then clicked my tongue. This bad boy, looks like he's burning up from the inside out. Although Carl and I don't get along, I still have to put on the proper facade. For example, I had to follow his social media account. But there was a little mishap when I tried to do so. I realized, in a fit of anger some time ago, I had put him on my blacklist. Now that was awkward. Quickly, I removed him from the blacklist and followed him. Not long after, he followed me back. Well, that was very considerate of him. This exchange of business-friendly gestures was satisfactory to me. After all, I'm getting paid and still getting to kiss him on screen, so I can put up with this little charade for a couple of months. However, someone secretly filmed our script reading session and leaked it online. The internet was in an uproar. Is the movie really going to be this explicit? I heard there are dozens of intimate scenes. These two are really willing to go all in for money, huh? Caroline, this washed-up woman, thinks she's worthy of kissing Carl? Who are you to say who's worthy? I didn't care much about the fan drama, I just kept my eyes glued to the script. 2 days later, the movie was officially set to begin filming. The first scene was, of course, the intimate one Carl and I had practiced before. No joke, I had stayed up until dawn last night, reviewing several popular kissing tutorials. This was it, no way I was letting him off easy today. I was confident and full of anticipation. As the director called action, I immediately got into character. But then Carl froze again, silent for a long time, not saying a word. I raised an eyebrow, starting to doubt his acting skills for the first time. Did he really win those Best Actor awards, or was it all just because of connections? Just when I thought the director would call cut, Carl finally moved. He wrapped his arm around my waist, his eyes lowering to meet mine. His gaze, dark, brooding. That look could make even a lamppost feel like the object of his affection. No trace of the awkwardness from earlier. The atmosphere thickened, charged with a palpable tension. The entire crew immediately turned to look at us, eyes burning with curiosity. My confidence from earlier evaporated in an instant. How did I, a professional actress, suddenly get nervous and start sweating? Carl seemed to have completely gotten back into the groove, even exceeding expectations. At one point, with his back to the camera, he created just enough distance to keep things intimate but still respectful. I was utterly lost. With the camera practically in my face, my brain was a blur. All I could think was, what do I do next? What were the next lines again? But my professional training kicked in, and I quickly picked up where I left off, even though my mind was wandering elsewhere. I seriously suspected this guy must have watched his fair share of special films in private. How could his technique be this smooth? But then again, with his looks and money, Carl was probably either in a long-term relationship or didn't have trouble finding one. Just as I was lost in my thoughts, I accidentally bumped into Carl. Carl let out a low, almost imperceptible groan. I froze, about to apologize, when the director happily yelled. Perfect, perfect. The chemistry is spot on. Now, let's just do a wide shot. Dizzy and flustered, I tried to say sorry, but Carl was already up and walking off the set, disappearing without a trace. His clear attempt to avoid me was almost too obvious. I rolled my eyes, feeling a surge of frustration as I prepared to get off the bed and touch up my makeup. But as I stood up, I lost my balance and sat down hard on the floor. Caroline. Are you okay? I'm fine. I pretended to act calm as I stood up, but inside, I wanted nothing more than to get a taxi and leave this place. I, of all people, was weak in the knees after being kissed by my arch-nemesis? What a humiliation. The first kissing scene was an embarrassment, and I blamed it on being out of practice since I rarely filmed such scenes. So, after wrapping up that night, I immediately dedicated myself to improving. As the saying goes, practice makes perfect. I refused to believe that after watching a dozen kissing tutorials, I'd still end up so humiliated next time. As for whether I was still humiliated or not, I wasn't sure, but thanks to these kissing tutorials, I ended up having a very stimulating dream that night. The male lead, none other than my detestable Carl. This dream left me with dark circles under my eyes the next morning when I showed up at the set and caught Carl staring off into space. What kind of sin is this? How did I end up dreaming about this guy? But honestly, it was kind of exciting. Wait, what? Ugh, did I just get nostalgic about that? Maybe my taste is just too absurd. At that moment, Carl, who had been reading his script, suddenly looked up and locked eyes with me. His gaze was pitch black. I quickly snapped out of it and awkwardly shifted my gaze elsewhere. Looking around, I saw Carl walking toward me. In a panic, I tried to get up and leave, but he lazily called out to me. Caroline. I froze. Surrounded by the staff, who were watching us with subtle curiosity, I couldn't afford to turn my back on him, so I turned around with a forced, overly natural smile. What's up? Carl strolled over to my side, and I couldn't help but notice a small cut on his lip. It was from me, from when I accidentally bumped into him yesterday. My ears immediately turned bright red. I need to ask you something. What is it? Do you need a body double later? A body double for our intimate scene. I stiffened, my face hardening as I coldly declined. No need, I'm a professional actress. Body doubles don't really give the same effect. Carl nodded slightly. Then I apologize, Caroline. That young guy called me teacher and apologized, but his expression was full of playful mockery. This made me remember last night's dream again. Under Carl's smirking gaze, I scrambled away, almost tripping over myself. Great, tonight's dream might just have some new material. But today, things went sideways with our intimate scene. I had just finished my makeup and was heading to the set when, as I was looking down to find my mark, a ceiling light suddenly fell right at me. It came crashing down directly above me. At that moment, I was frozen, unable to react. Fortunately, Carl wasn't far away. His face changed instantly, and he rushed to pull me into his arms. With the gasps of the crew, the light shattered into pieces all around us. Carl held me so tightly, I wasn't hurt at all, but I still felt a bit dazed. Caroline? Are you hurt? Carl was anxious, gently shaking me. I slowly shook my head. I'm fine, thank you. The crease in his furrowed brow relaxed. This accident caused a delay in the shooting. The director was furious, urgently instructing the crew to check for safety hazards. Then he came over to apologize. I kept telling him it was nothing and not to worry while sneakily glancing over at Carl, who was having the staff inspect the equipment. Maybe the incident had really upset him. He was cold, his jawline tight with frustration. The staff around him dared not even breathe. The oppressive atmosphere felt as if nothing could grow for miles. I couldn't help but notice a small cut on his hand, a result of the falling light's shattered fragments. My head was spinning. When Carl saved me, the concern in his eyes was real. It wasn't fake. Perhaps it was the suspension bridge effect, but at that moment, my dislike for Carl naturally decreased by a lot. Thinking this way, I felt a little guilty and immediately instructed my assistant to buy some iodine and cotton swabs. When Carl finished talking to the staff, I took it upon myself to move over. Carl, let me put some medicine on that cut. Carl glanced at me, the coldness in his expression melting away. He quickly returned to his usual indifferent self. He slowly teased me. Thanks, but it's fine. If you'd waited another 2 minutes, it would have healed on its own. The guilt I'd felt just evaporated. Well, it seems I was worrying over nothing. The incident completely ruined the mood for Carl and me to continue filming. The director called for a few more takes of other scenes before declaring the day over. He suggested a group dinner to help everyone unwind. The crew was thrilled. I had initially planned to go home and get some much-needed rest, but since I was the lead actress, it would have looked awkward if I didn't show up for the first dinner. So, I had my assistant drive me over. As I was leaving the set, I overheard a group of young girls nearby, looking absolutely wild as they discussed something. As I passed, I caught snippets of their conversation, Carl, schedule, and then, something about getting Carl's hotel room key. I frowned. Carl's Stalker fans were a real problem in the industry. After his rise to fame, a wave of obsessive fans, usually seen in the idol world, had flooded toward him. These extreme fans were known for their fervent behavior, chasing him down, taking photos and videos without consent, and even digging into his private life. A few times, their actions had even made headlines, so I knew exactly how dangerous and creepy this group could be. I couldn't be bothered with them, so I had my assistant drive me straight to the restaurant. When I arrived at the dinner venue, many of the actors and crew were already there. The director and Carl were sitting in the center of the group, chatting. I gave a simple greeting before sitting down and getting ready to eat. For some reason, the food today was especially to my liking, and nearly everything on the table was something I loved. I was just about to silently give a thumbs up to the staff member who'd placed the order when the director cheerfully spoke to me. Caroline, looks like the dishes Carl ordered really suit your taste. I froze mid-bite. What? Carl ordered the food? I looked up, bewildered, at the young man sitting next to the director. He was gazing at me with a calm expression, but his eyes held a trace of amusement. Under the warm yellow lights of the private room, he looked exceptionally handsome. Like a fox. Caroline, is everything okay? Yes, thank you. I forced a polite smile before quickly lowering my head to continue eating. How would Carl know what I like to eat? Was he secretly snooping through my bio, planning to poison me? But then another outrageous thought crossed my mind. Could it be that he has a crush on me? That thought about Carl possibly having feelings for me made me want to spit at myself. Single for too long, and now I'm seeing romance everywhere. I quickly pushed that absurd idea aside and focused on doing what I do best, eating. I occasionally exchanged a few words with the gentle second male lead. But out of the corner of my eye, I noticed Carl glancing over at me from time to time. Suddenly, I remembered the obsessive fans outside the set earlier. Carl had saved me today, so out of courtesy, I figured I should let him know about those fans. But with so many people around, I decided to hold off. When Carl got up to leave, I hurried to catch up with him. "Carl, wait a second." I called out to him. He turned, eyebrows raised slightly, clearly surprised. "What's up?" There's something. When I left the set earlier, I saw some of your." Before I could finish, a few girls suddenly walked past us. It was the same obsessive fans. "Carl's here for the dinner. We're going to follow him to the men's restroom." How ridiculous. They were so shameless. They were planning to sneak into the restroom just to spy on him. I froze in shock, then panicked and pulled Carl into an empty private room nearby. Carl didn't resist or question me, simply allowing me to drag him along. I quickly shut the door and pressed my ear to it, listening as the girls' voices passed by. Once I was sure they were gone, I let out a sigh of relief. I was about to continue talking to Carl about the stalkers when I noticed he was leaning casually against the wall, his eyes burning into me as he grinned playfully. It looked less like we were hiding from fans and more like we were sneaking around having an affair. What the hell? "Carl, really? You're smiling like that even in this situation?" I quickly lowered my voice and tried to warn him. "Aren't you worried about your stalkers fans? They're looking for you." "Why should I be worried?" "But I heard them say they have your hotel key card, and they're planning to follow you to the men's restroom." "That's serious enough to call the police, right?" Carl just shrugged, unconcerned. "It's my assistant's hotel key card. I already had him change hotels, and I have my own room here." Right, I forgot Carl was a rich second-generation heir. I listened carefully as the fans' voices grew distant, finally relaxing. "Then aren't you upset?" Carl was still looking at me, his gaze unreadable, dark with hidden emotions. "I'm not at the point of being upset yet." "Oh." I responded stiffly, but Carl seemed to want more. He leaned in slightly, his handsome face growing larger in my field of vision. "Caroline, aren't you going to ask me why?" "Why should I ask?" I rolled my eyes and shot him a sarcastic reply. If he didn't mind, why should I say anything? But despite myself, a part of me was curious. If he wasn't bothered by those obsessive fans, why had he looked so cold and distant earlier when he saved me from almost being hit by that light? I studied him, and the same ridiculous, shameless thought popped into my head again. Could it be, he actually has feelings for me? That night, the stalker fans were soon escorted get kicked out by hotel security that night, and Carl was finally free to use the restroom. Meanwhile, I found myself eating my meal in a distracted haze. Every now and then, I couldn't help but sneak glances at Carl. Look at the clean knuckles holding his knife and fork, the slightly drooping eyelashes as he talks to the director, the sharp side of his face and the smooth line of his shoulders. The maturity of a man mixed with the youthful confidence of a boy. I bit my lip, only to find myself looking at him a little too much. What I didn't realize was that Carl, who had been focusing on his meal, was slowly, almost imperceptibly, smiling at me. That night, Carl appeared in my dreams again. In the dream, the young man pressed me against the door of an empty private room, leaning close to my ear as he whispered one sentence. "Caroline, do you know why I'm not angry? Because you're the most important." Then, I woke up with my face burning with the embarrassment of my own dream. Why on earth did I dream about Carl? And in the dream, why was I so shy? I'd lost all dignity. My odd behavior startled both my assistant and my manager when they came to pick me up. Caroline. What's going on? Caroline. What happened? Are you okay? I quickly wiped the blush off my face and straightened up. It's nothing. Just need to freshen up and head to the set. I swore to myself that I would not look at Carl again today. Otherwise, I'd be stuck with these dreams forever. But ideals are beautiful, and reality is harsh. Soon enough, I heard my assistant go through the filming schedule as usual. Caroline, today we're going to film the scenes we couldn't do yesterday. I closed my eyes. Some days, you just feel so helpless. I was already dreading the thought of seeing Carl again. I might just collapse. I walked into the set, absent-mindedly glancing around, and noticed Carl's Stalker fans hanging out in a corner of the set, peering in our direction. I immediately instructed my assistant to get security to escort them out. It's one thing to secretly photograph a star, but it's another thing entirely to disrupt the filming schedule or leak crucial scenes. After that, I was busy with makeup and didn't think much about the fans. Until it was time for me and Carl to film the intimate scene. This scene is actually not very explicit, there are just a few kissing scenes. The director went on and on, passionately discussing eye contact, sexual tension, and artistic flair, but I could barely take it. I subtly glanced to the side and saw Carl completely unfazed, even slipping into character as soon as the camera started rolling. I couldn't deny that the tenderness in his gaze stirred something in me, and though my heart raced faster with each passing second, it also steadied. Isn't it just a kissing scene? After all, the dreams I'd been having these past few days were way more intense than this. Why should I make a fuss? With that thought, I closed my eyes, steadied myself, and followed the script, leaning in to kiss him. It wasn't until the director yelled cut and said it was good that I finally realized what had just happened. I sat up groggily, instinctively reaching to rub my back. When I looked up, it was Carl holding me steady. His face was impassive, but I could see the tips of his ears were completely flushed. So, he wasn't as calm as he seemed. This gave me a boost of energy. Just as I was about to tease him a little, a few enraged shouts suddenly erupted from across the set. Caroline, you shameless woman, let go of my Carl. You dirty woman. Who gave you the right to kiss him? I instinctively turned around, and sure enough, I saw Carl's Stalker fans charging toward the set, their faces twisted with rage, looking like monsters. A few of them were immediately stopped by the staff, unable to get near me. But their insults were so vulgar that I couldn't help but feel uncomfortable. I could feel my eyes start to sting with unshed tears. Just as I was about to lower my head and leave, Carl suddenly stood up beside me, his expression dark. He strode straight toward those Stalker's fans, the quiet fury in his eyes chilling enough to make anyone shudder. Was he angry because they were insulting me? My heart skipped a beat, and that strange feeling I couldn't explain returned. Ah, Carl, my prince. Carl, I finally met you, ah. The Stalker's fans immediately stopped insulting me but became even more excited. Get out of here. Carl stood firm and coldly spoke, his voice freezing. For a moment, the entire set fell silent. In the entertainment industry, stars are often stuck between a rock and a hard place when it comes to Stalker fans. If they try to stop them, they risk being accused of acting high and mighty or being maliciously slandered, which can hurt their public image. But if they remain silent, worse things often happen. It's a no-win situation. So, most stars just tolerate it. But Carl, standing there and telling them to leave without hesitation, made everyone pause. Carl, how dare you tell us to leave? I bought your magazine. Carl's expression didn't change as he coldly addressed them. Security, please escort them out and call the police. His forceful approach left the Stalker's fans stunned. But security quickly stepped in and had them removed. Carl turned back toward me, his voice low and reassuring. Caroline, it's fine now. In that moment, I couldn't help but feel like maybe, just maybe, I really was the most important person to him, just like he said in my dream. The way he protected me made a strange warmth spread inside me, and I couldn't help but feel an odd sweetness bubbling up. Carl was truly a good person. So good, in fact, that I found myself wishing I could have more dreams about him. In just a few days, Carl's Stalker fans started spreading all kinds of malicious rumors online. They claimed his rich kid persona was a lie, called him gay, said he was picking girlfriends in the entertainment industry, and even suggested he was being lewd toward me on set. Honestly, the venom they spewed was as vicious as it gets. Carl's company wasted no time in suing the stalkers and the social media accounts spreading these false rumors, declaring they wouldn't settle. They were suing to the fullest extent. I, too, was furious and had my studio issue a public refutation of the lewdness claim, even praising Carl's professionalism. Soon, those Stalker fans were kneeling and apologizing online, but before the dust could settle, rumors started circulating that Carl and I were romantically involved because of our on-screen chemistry. There was no hard evidence, just wild speculation. But someone conveniently leaked a photo. It was of Carl, pre-debut, wearing a mask and watching one of my movies. Back then, he wasn't famous yet, just a handsome guy, and a passerby had snapped a picture. But now, with all that had happened, it seemed to take on a different meaning. Younger guy has a secret crush and enters the entertainment industry for love, then his rival becomes his true love. If you don't refute this, I'm going to take it seriously. Then why did he ask someone else to choose someone else to like? Could it be that Carl's jealous? Yeah, Caroline liked Carl in front of him, and that temper of his, he had to snap at her, but Caroline probably misunderstood, otherwise why would she go so far as to like a bunch of his negative gossip overnight? As I scrolled through the gossip, my heart fluttered. Wait a second. Carl actually watched my movie? Could it be that he really had feelings for me? I couldn't help but feel a bit giddy. But before I could fully enjoy the excitement, Carl's own dating scandal exploded all over social media. A well-known, stunning actress was photographed having a secret meeting with Carl. Social media quickly pieced together their shared outfits and various matching items. Before I could even process what was happening, the rumors about us were completely drowned out by this new development. A lot of netizens even started congratulating Carl and the actress, assuming they were a couple. The joy that had just been building inside me immediately came crashing down. Oh, so Carl had a girlfriend? Then why was he flirting with me on set? What a jerk. And the actress in question was around my age, a competitor of mine in terms of resources. It was no surprise we often clashed in the industry, but now it felt personal. I couldn't help but feel bitter, both resentful and envious. Just as I was about to unfollow Carl in frustration, I saw the actress post again. I could have worked with Carl on this movie, but alas, I couldn't beat those. Oh well, at least I have Carl with me tonight. I blinked in disbelief. Was she implying that I stole the movie from her and ruined her chance at getting closer to Carl? That's exactly what she meant. I rolled my eyes, my patience thinning. Many netizens quickly picked up on this and began calling me a mistress. Fury welled up inside me, and I was about to unleash on social media when. Just then, Carl posted on his own account. Carl, I only took this movie for Caroline. What do you think you are? The moment those words hit the internet, everything went still for a beat before it erupted into chaos. It was rare for a celebrity to directly call out rumors and even publicly confess their feelings, and the netizens went wild. The actress quickly deleted her post, and moments later, she sheepishly claimed that everyone had misunderstood. But the internet didn't buy it. They quickly turned on her, accusing her of using Carl's name for clout. As I stared at Carl's post, was that a public declaration? He took this movie for me? My mind went blank. What? I was suddenly overwhelmed with a rush of warmth. My face turned crimson as my heart inexplicably began to race again. But even with Carl's bold confession, we didn't immediately speak openly about what had just happened. We let the gossip swirl, the rumors about our relationship spreading like wildfire. And honestly, there was an unspoken, almost eerie chemistry between us, something unnameable, something just beneath the surface. It was as if we both understood without saying a word, a kind of quiet flirtation. I had no feelings of repulsion for him. In fact, I found myself gravitating toward him, talking to him in a soft, teasing tone, and after work, I'd casually suggest grabbing a bite together. We had already started to resemble something like friends, but with that little extra spark. He still teased me frequently, but it was always after putting down whatever work he was doing, never leaving me to feel neglected. His gaze, so hot and intense, made my heart race, and every time our eyes met, I felt like a little deer caught in his stare. Even my manager, who had noticed the shift, pulled me aside one day and asked if I was starting to like Carl. I hesitated for a moment before giving a slow, sheepish nod. At nearly 30, I'd been single long enough to recognize when something felt different. I liked Carl, and I couldn't deny it. Not just the character he played in the film, but him. This was real. So, I decided to take the plunge and act on it. But before I could gather my courage, the director threw a curveball my way, a kissing scene with the second male lead. Carl, who had been lazily listening to me, suddenly tensed, his lips pressing into a thin line. I paused, catching the subtle shift in his expression. But I agreed to the scene without a word, just nodding and chatting casually with the second lead. It was a simple scene, just a stolen kiss. And as I went through it, I felt nothing beyond the mechanical, technical side of it, no emotions, just the motions of acting. When the shoot was over, I made a beeline for Carl, eager to check on him. But the moment I asked the staff about him, I was told he had gone back to his makeup room, looking a bit off. I stopped in my tracks, heart suddenly heavy. Was this the right moment to clear the air between us? I didn't want to see Carl upset, not when I had an idea of what we were both feeling. When I found him in his makeup room, he was sitting with his head bowed, alone. The second he saw me, he lifted his gaze, locking eyes with me. I cleared my throat, walking up to stand before him, my voice gentle. "Carl, are you upset?" He gave a quiet nod. "Why?" His gaze darkened, intense. "Caroline, why don't you tell me?" His question hit me like a spark, something shifted in my chest. Unable to resist, I let my curiosity spill out. "Carl, what did you mean when you told someone not to like me? Do you dislike me?" He straightened up immediately, his expression serious. "No, I don't." I nodded, feeling a small weight lift off my shoulders. It seemed like I had misread the situation. Carl looked satisfied with how things were going. "Caroline, you can ask me anything. I'll answer you." I hesitated for a moment before asking the question I had been holding on to. "Then, why did you take the role in this movie?" He looked at me steadily, his voice low but certain. "Because I wanted to pursue the female lead." My heart skipped a beat. The female lead, me. So, he did like me. I opened my mouth, but words failed me. Instead, I lowered my gaze, speaking softly. "You don't have to pursue me anymore." His face shifted, something unreadable flashing across his features, but before he could react, I lightly poked his hand. "Because I've already won you over." Carl blinked, momentarily stunned. Then, without a second's hesitation, he grabbed my hand, his grip firm and warm. And just like that, the unspoken connection between us, the small, secret flirtations and lingering glances, was shattered, now out in the open, clear and undeniable. He held my hand like it was the most precious thing in the world, his eyes full of a quiet, intense affection. In that moment, it was clear. I was no longer just playing a role. I was his.
My name is Carl. I come from a well-off family, and I've always had good things going for me. I've never cared for the celebrity world and certainly never chased after any female stars. But one day in my junior year of college, my roommate dragged me into watching a youth movie. He had a huge crush on the female lead, and he couldn't stop gushing about how beautiful she was, how she was the entertainment industry's ideal girlfriend. At first, I wasn't interested at all. I felt bored and even thought about walking out. But as the movie went on, I found myself getting drawn in. It wasn't the lead actress that caught my attention, but the supporting character, the one with barely any screen time. She had this cool, distant air, but when she smiled, it was like a hint of sweetness shining through. I immediately searched for her name. Caroline. Amidst my roommate's endless chatter, I let out a low, almost dismissive sound. This is what first love should feel like. So pure, it made my heart race. I couldn't take my eyes off her. But I didn't make a big deal of it. I quietly became a fan of hers, occasionally supporting her films. I watched as she went from supporting roles to becoming the lead, eventually earning her place as the true, ideal girlfriend of the entertainment industry. Then, by a stroke of luck, I entered the industry myself, becoming an actor right after graduation. My family thought it was just something to try, a way to pass the time. I figured I'd do it for fun and maybe follow a star. One day on set, someone mentioned that Caroline was doing a cameo in a neighboring production. Something in my mind clicked, and without a second thought, I walked over. That's when I saw her. It was my first time seeing her in person. I can't quite explain the rush of emotions that hit me, but I knew immediately that it was different from the attraction I'd felt watching her on screen. Was liking someone. But I didn't approach her. Instead, I calmly turned around and walked back to my own set. I wasn't stupid. If I went over now, her bodyguards would probably toss me out on the spot. Later, luck was on my side. My first film blew up, and I became an instant sensation. Finally, I had the courage to approach her. But of course, she had a legion of admirers. One time, I even heard a fellow actor openly declare his feelings for Caroline right in front of me. I couldn't hold back and cursed him out. The tabloids twisted it into a story of me disliking Caroline, sparking a fan war online. So when I saw her again at another event, she turned and walked away without saying a word, even blocking me on social media. Even when I said she was my ideal type, she just scoffed. Before I even got the chance to chase her, she already hated me. I had to find a way to clear up the misunderstanding. Then one day, my agent Susie handed me a movie script. There are a lot of kissing scenes and the intensity is pretty high. Do you think you can handle it? Without even looking up, I replied, I'm not taking it. Well, the female lead is Caroline. Maybe it's better not to take it. Otherwise, your fans and hers might crash social media. I raised my head immediately. Then I'll take it. Huh. Ignoring Susie's stunned expression, I let a slow smile curl at the corner of my lips. Here it is, the opportunity I'd been waiting for. After filming wrapped, Caroline and I officially went public with our relationship. There were plenty of well-wishers and plenty of naysayers online, but my relationship with her remained strong. At a red carpet event not long after, a reporter asked me, Caroline, some netizens say you and Caroline became romantically involved because of this film. Do you agree with that? My gaze shifted to Caroline, who was walking towards us in a gorgeous dress. When she saw me, her cool expression softened, and she gave me a warm smile. I smiled back. No, I said, because I fell in love with her at first sight.